United family, here we are again, another run-up. This is a very special one. This is going to be one that's sort of documented as well as in the MLS history of sort of how this league has gone. This is obviously, we're living in times where this has not happened before, and this connotation and this narrative where so many people are talking about so many things. I mean, obviously, as Americans, we have a past history of dealing with racism and with injustice and things of that nature. But 2020 has, again, delivered this to the forefront of everybody's minds, of everybody's thoughts. And it's now time, as always, when injustice is going on, for people to stand up and to take action. Obviously, we've been seeing this happen with the reaction to George Floyd, previous deaths before that from police brutality. This is sort of unique in where it's multiple sports upon multiple teams, different leagues that are coming together, just like the Black Lives Matter movement, to stand up for justice for Jacob. And then so I don't know how further to introduce this or to bring up this topic, but this is sort of where we need to start. Obviously, the game against Inter Miami did not happen as it was supposed to on Wednesday. It has been rescheduled. They just announced that for September 9th at 8 p.m. So that game will again happen. But here we are, another match preview. And we really just sort of need to start this conversation off. I think the best way to do it is to sort of start about on a timeline basis of sort of how we all saw this breakdown, right? So for me, I actually was producing a live show that evening at 9 p.m. I was sitting on my couch at work with YouTube TV channeled in, getting ready to sort of watch, and I'm sitting on Twitter and I see, sort of as everybody else did, the NBA protest. And then we start getting into these discussions of, well, is this going to bleed into MLS and, Black players for change? And do we see this protest from the NBA transfer over to MLS? Obviously, it did. I cannot comment for every fan of Atlanta United. We all have vast and differing opinions. I will say solely for myself, and I can't speak for the other guys on the show, I am for the support of the players. Black Lives Matter. And I really feel like this injustice sort of needs to end. And so I publicly on Twitter said that I am for the players protesting. I am for this demonstration of change. I supported it. I'm glad that Atlanta United also supported it as well. And I just want to bleed that into sort of where this postponement of the game happened. And then additionally, Atlanta United's statement on the postponement and what they said: we stand in solidarity with the Black community, with our players, with our city, and with our fans in the fight against injustice. We must use our voice to be the change. I think that was very poignant and very stated in what exactly was going on. And sort of that's where I myself as an individual come out with this. I felt like as a team for Atlanta United, we came together, we agreed that this needed to be stated, this needed to be said, this postponement needed to happen. And as we saw, the five other games in total, but other games that night were canceled. Obviously, Dallas versus Colorado, Real Salt Lake versus LAFC, San Jose versus Portland, LA Galaxy versus Seattle. Obviously, we did see Orlando and Nashville start, but as we saw the comments come out later, there was so much going on at that point in time that Oscar Pereira said we would have postponed, but we were just getting the information in at kickoff. So, John, I'm going to go ahead and pass this to you. I feel like I've been talking for ages now, but it's such a strong issue, such an important issue that I really feel like, as a person, because I obviously want to say again, I don't speak for everybody on this podcasts. I'm not sure how they all sit down on this, but I just want to be very diplomatic in saying it's my opinion that I think the postponement was for the best, was for the better. The game's still being played, so there was no harm, no foul in as far as league standings, but I do feel like a statement like this needed to be made, and I'm glad that we as a team became united and stood for this.
And, for the next 50 minutes or so, we'll be discussing this. We'll be discussing the upcoming match this weekend. And folks who watch Dayside know how I am and what my thoughts are on this particular issue. And to see the sports world unite as one, and I'm not just talking about the players and the teams and the organizations, but the fans and everyone who's engaged and wrapped themselves in their particular teams and with their athletes on a daily basis. I think that it was tremendous to see across the board, regardless of who your fans are, regardless of what your sport is, all of that stuff. So we can get into that. That's what Twitch is for. We love the conversation that you guys have on the Twitch pitch. Kelly will be monitoring that this evening. So twitch.tv/soccerdown here for those of you who are right now just listening on the audio side of things. We're live on Spreaker. Don't forget to download the Soccer Down Here app, available to iOS and Android. If you haven't done that, you can listen live on where your favorite podcatchers are. But, Kelly, as you mentioned what happened with the postponement down in Miami, the next hot spot in all of this and the newest focal point in all of this has become Real Salt Lake. And once again, we haven't had the chance to get your point of view and what your thoughts were on what has gone on with Real Salt Lake and the owner there and everything that has come out in the last little while where that's concerned. From what you've been able to read in the conversations and what have you been able to see about what's gone on in Real Salt Lake? What are your thoughts there?
In all honesty, I didn't know the past history of the owner. I didn't know all of this. I mean, for I guess people who are less informed about Real Salt Lake, this is something that's kind of come as a shock. Obviously, for people who are well informed of Real Salt Lake, this is not. This is a problem that's been ongoing. I didn't get to read to the very end of the article, but I will say within the first 3 paragraphs of the Athletic article that was released about this, my stomach churned, and it had a very visceral reaction. I'm getting very emotional. I'm sorry. I grew up in the South, and obviously I grew up in Atlanta, so it's a more metropolitan city. I was actually, I went to a primarily African-American high school. So a lot of my friends, a lot of people that I interacted with were African-American. I have grown up seeing racism and dealing with racist in my life. I've always stood up where I could. I've always raised up my voice where I could. Hearing some of the things that were said as an owner to a African-American player was not only upsetting, but it was, it felt, certain remarks feel completely unhuman to me. Again, this is my own statement and my own point of view on this, but there is no point in time where somebody's skin color should make you want to kill them. I just don't believe that. I wasn't raised that way. I see people for who they are as individuals, and it feels wrong for me for somebody who owns a team in a league that has stated that they're for inclusion and for diversity and for everybody playing the game to be so offensive in language. That's sort of where I stood with the whole RSL thing. I'm obviously going to read as many articles as I can about it. I don't want to be completely ill-informed about this, but I do believe that change needs to happen. From what I've been seeing on Twitter, from what I've been seeing recently in the feeds, it looks like MLS is coming in as what's been rumored, coming in a sort of takeover stance of trying to figure out a switch in ownership, which I think is absolutely needed. But that's sort of, again, I can't clarify this enough. I mean, this is sort of not something that I thought that we would have to talk about on this show. The show was designed and originally intended to be a preview show for Atlanta United, something that got you guys energetic and excited about the next match, the next day, something that we would have watched, honestly, and then met everybody in the tailgate the next day. So unprecedented times, obviously, but things like this should never be bypassed. Standing up for people's equal rights, standing up for people's lives matters regardless. So again, that's where I stand on that. I'd love to hear your thoughts on it. Again, it was completely, it made me very uncomfortable reading that article. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah. By Thursday night, Major League Soccer announced it was going to conduct an investigation into Deloy Hansen's alleged conduct. The MLSPA has called for Hansen's immediate suspension, demanded that the league force him to sell the team if the allegations are substantiated. If you don't subscribe to The Athletic, I would recommend going to the Salt Lake City Tribune. Alex Vahar has done some tremendous work over the last day and a half. sltrib.com. It's a free site. There's no pay window with all of the work that they've done. Gordon Munson, their longtime heralded columnist, has called for Deloy Hansen to surrender ownership of the team. So that's where we are right now. But if you subscribe to The Athletic, read their work. Kelly was, once again, go to sltrib.com for the local angle from the local writers to get the lay of the land there. This weekend, RSL is set to travel to Portland. Zach McMath told Sam Stejkal of The Athletic a couple of hours ago the team's planning on traveling, playing in the game in Portland tomorrow night. It's the last game on the board. And he also says that there have been talks among players about a protest at the game, but they haven't decided yet on an action. So we'll keep an eye on that. So that's where things stand right now with RSL as they head to Portland for the late night game tomorrow night.
Yeah. And I do want to get back to this overall statement and the overall protest and the postponement of the games. There were some statements that came out by Atlanta United players, most predominantly Jeff Larentowicz. I do want to read this because I do think it's also important. His comment on the decision on the pre-match, so he said it wasn't a decision where we thought not playing the game against Miami would be the silver bullet to solve all issues. It was the coming together of support, and I think that we can build this into tackling bigger issues and use the support we've shown for one another, each other, to come up with ways to make things better. It's on us to do more to find ways to affect change. The platform we have shows that we are unified. If you enjoy what we do and entertaining fans, maybe we can come together and you can listen to the things that matter most. And Sydney Hoyt, who actually writes for Dirty South Soccer, I had a tweet on this that I thought was really interesting and important, and I wanted to share. So his tweet said basically, Jeff Larentowicz brought up a good point during the call, saying that players are human beings first and foremost. If fans enjoy the games and the players that play them, they need to take the time to listen when players speak out about social issues, because they are players. I mean, they are humans first, right? We are all humans first. We should care about each other on a human basis. Again, that's where I stand on it. We're in such a political atmosphere right now where I feel like I need to constantly say that I'm expressing my opinion. I'm very well aware people on Twitter that have come out of nowhere disagree with me, but it's a time and a point where we stand up for what we believe in and we say what we believe in, and I think that's just where I'm at right now with that. I did want to also share that MLS came out with a statement on the postponement saying, on Wednesday, August 26th, Major League Soccer players stood in solidarity with the athletes across North America as MLS matches were postponed in recognition of the struggle for racial equality and human rights. The league, its clubs, owners, and staff supported this effort and the goal of bringing recognition to these important issues following a period of reflection and the conversation with the Black Players for Change. The league's players and the MLS Players Association matches will resume beginning tonight with the Montreal Impact hosting Toronto FC. The Black Players for Change are scheduled to meet with MLS owners as the players and the league continue working together to create a long-term change both inside and outside of MLS. Basically, for this, I feel like it's needed for us to understand that change needs to happen. This conversation needs to happen. It's needed to happen for a long time. I'm glad it's finally happening. I'm glad it's with this sort of atmosphere around it because it makes it that much more crucial and that much more important. We all need to come together and have this discussion on how we make things better as a league, better for the players. I hope eventually we as a society can come together and talk about how we can obviously make the social injustice issues better, but we're talking in a soccer complex or we're talking in a soccer confine right now. So obviously MLS has a lot of things that it needs to work on. I think it's moving in positive steps with Black Players for Change meeting with MLS owners and us talking in a way to bring this conversation forward.
Yeah, if sports is the prism where we can all be better at the end of the day, and in this particular instance, if soccer is that sport that's a part of that prism where we all can be united and discuss issues and tackle the most difficult issues of the day, then that's part of what we're here for.
Exactly. Now, if you guys have any questions or anything that you want us to particularly talk about with this particular issue, go ahead and place it in the chat. I am watching the chat. But I did want to go ahead and start bleeding into talking about the match that's coming up because that is tomorrow. So,
yep, Bartimus Prime on Twitter, Kelly. He is the first one in the Twitter timeline. He basically has a hashtag. It's got 4 letters in it. And the first letter and the last letter are the letter O. I think you might.
Yeah, I know it. I know. Yep.
Yep. So Bartimus Prime, I believe, is fairly excited about having Atlanta and Orlando going at it at 3:55 tomorrow afternoon on Univision.
I love how you say 3:55 because everything I say says 3:30, sir.
3:55 apparently is the TV time. 3:30 is the on-air time. It's probably closer to 3:50 or 3:55 for the actual kick. So, because Univision has their pregame show, and they will be blowing up all of their MLS action as they lead into Sábado Gigante, their Liga MX coverage.
This is something that I did want to ask you because this is something that I've obviously said going into the season. John, what is your opinion? Do you think, or this could be the year, dun dun dun, that and every time I say Orlando, I just went Orlando.
Of course, yeah, that's how it should be because Andrew Reynolds pops into our heads
exactly
every single time that comes up, and honestly,
Orlando,
there you go.
Thank you, producer. How are you?
Book of Mormon. Book of Mormon is where that reference comes from. And so when Andrew Reynolds busts out that particular O word, then you know it's time.
Yeah.
This is not this as I've talked to other folks about it. This is not your older brother's. This is not your father's Orlando City team. This is not even your older brother's Orlando City team.
Nope,
This is not James O'Connor Orlando City that we're talking about here. This is Oscar Pareja. Yeah, and to see Oscar Pareja and Luis Muzzi take hold of their vision of Orlando City, and I know that we'll get into it with Jason in a little while, but to see the names that they've brought in, to see Chris Mueller on the right-hand side, to see Tesho Akindele, who we got a handful of when he was in Dallas, to see Pereira as a part and parcel to this, to see Gillespie in net. And, that's to see Gillespie. Gillespie is not hashtag Bendick face. I will tell you that right now. Gillespie. And Gillespie is already getting interest from teams in outside of this hemisphere. That's how different Orlando City is. Orlando City has basically said, "Nah, we're not. You can't have him."
You're forgetting one particular name outside of Nani, obviously, but one particular name that I think that as Atlanta United fans, we should be concerned about.
And who is that?
And that's Daryl Dike.
The hot hand. Yeah, and that's the discussion that we had this morning, with Mike Conti. When Mike was on the segment this morning, it's like Mike and I are big hockey fans.
Yeah.
And when you watch the Stanley Cup playoffs.
I had no idea. Are you?
Yeah, I'm a big hockey fan.
Mind blown.
Yeah, if I had my LA Kings Stanley Cup stuff, I would show it to you. But it's up there in the office. It's not handy. But, if you've got a hot goalie in the Stanley Cup playoffs, doesn't matter how many and how close your games are together, you ride that hot hand. And I think that right now Daryl Dike is that hot hand for Orlando up top.
He is hot. I just looking at that game against Nashville, he's all over the pitch. Mm-hmm. He's ending plays. He's starting the attack, and then he's ending the attack. He's a player that you really need to have your lock on. I mean, Daryl Dike is the one we need to be looking for. We want to, and let's just go into this post match for Nashville, because I do want to say something with this. Nashville is a team that has built a lot of their roster in a defensive manner, so right. they are there to play good defensive games. The game against Orlando was
not
strange, very strange, because as a team that's supposed to be solid defensively, they let a lot of things go. That second goal could have easily, somebody could have, I can't remember the defender that was on Daryl Dike for that goal, but that could have easily been toe poked in some direction. And that's honestly what it takes. When we talk about our defense going into this game, it's going to be the matter of staying and having those one-on-one matches with players like DK, players with Mueller, with Nani. Obviously, you've got that front three that are extremely dangerous, but you're going to have to make sure that you know where those players are at all times, their ability to combine. Obviously, we've seen Pareja come up and make a lot of great contributions as from the midfield, but we are looking at an Orlando team that, on an attack basis, are a lot more solid than you've seen from Dom Dwyer in the past couple of years. So we are looking at a more deadly as far as a counter-striking team. But I will say, going back to that Nashville match, the first goal obviously was a Nashville goal. They get it off of a set piece. We know Nashville is dangerous when it comes to set pieces. The second goal was Orlando's first. It was a cross-in, and Mueller, I don't know if they practiced the set piece where he was just laying down on the ground already to attack. But it's what it felt like. I'm not entirely sure why he was on the ground to begin with, but I guess it's kind of hard to, defend a player who's just laying on the ground. So maybe that's a strategy that they had. So
it's the prone set piece is what you're going for here?
Yeah, I'm just weird, odd set pieces.
Okay.
But it worked for them, so yes. There you have it. And then you have the counter press that obviously led to that Daryl Dike goal. It's another thing that we need to look for as far as going from this counter pressing and the midfield out. We're looking at one touches from Uri Rosell all the way to Daryl Dike. They had almost one touch towards the goal to that. So it's quick passing. It's setting themselves up in these sort of open arrows where they can go and attack. And we need to, as a defensive standpoint, look at these players in not only a 1v1 battle, but how they're going to form up and do these one touches. Because if they're counter pressing, one of the things that we need to do is make sure that they can't get to that point where it's an issue, because losing the ball in the midfield is going to be an issue against this Orlando team. But my overall look and warehouse of watching that Nashville game is that Daryl Dike is a player that needs to be marked. He needs to be watched. He needs to be fouled in a way that isn't going to continue to be excessive yellows. Yep. But, if you can take him out in a non-red card way, you got to do it.
Okay, now one of the things when Jason and I started, hanging out together as friends, one of the first bylaws of Jason Longshore that when he comes on, it's reinforced here when it comes to a team that is as talented offensively as Orlando is up top. Always have one more in defense than they do in attack, and that's my bylaw number one that I always look at when it comes to teams. And so when Jason comes on, I want to see how he's looking at the lineup to have that one more body to look at the lineup of probably Nani, DK, and Mueller. And Pereira coming in from behind. So I want to see with those four. I want to see what he's looking at for defense in the center of the pitch for Orlando City. That's the biggest. That's my bylaw number one when it comes to analysis for every single game for Atlanta United. Always have one more back in defense than they do in attack, and so that's how I've always looked at my lineups.
But what were your thoughts before we get Jason on? What were your thoughts from the Nashville-Orlando match?
Ooh, I mean that's probably the biggest word that I could use is ooh. That was it was uncharacteristic from Nashville.
Yes,
and that's probably the best word that I could use when it comes to that. And you mentioned a team that is built the way that Nashville is, and for them to, because you look and you're watching the match and you turn to your right and all of a sudden it's like, oh, one's turned into two and then two's turned into three and you're sitting there going, what happened?
Yeah.
And it was a complete and total head scratcher, but you have to give Orlando City all the credit in the world for finding those gaps and getting the ball into the back of the net. And Joe Willis ended up with Bendick face. It was just that he had the furrowed brow and everything. It was completely and totally one of these, for those watching on Twitch, you'd see after the third goal, Joe Willis looked like completely and totally, almost to the point of being shell-shocked. But it was an uncharacteristic performance defensively for Nashville, and I want to see how Nashville turns that around next time out. But you tip your hat to Orlando, and I will continue. And yes, I did just say you tip your hat to Orlando City.
You got to take advantage, though. If a team is playing uncharacteristically bad, right?
Jump on them. Jump on them.
That's what you do. That's what you have to do. That's how this game is played. If they're showing a fault line, you take advantage of the fault line. It's just how that works.
Okay, so you were asking me a question that you kind of built into, and I completely distracted you from finishing your question. I know what the question is,
okay,
but I want you to go ahead and ask it anyway.
I don't now I don't know what question I was going to ask.
When we started talking about Orlando City, and Atlanta United.
Okay, do you think this is the year?
See, this is where I thought you were going.
And this is the team that could give Atlanta their first.
All right, so let me ask you this before I answer the question, and I think that if it does happen, it probably happens in Orlando.
All right.
How much? I could almost see the gears in your head grinding as you were trying to formulate that question.
I didn't want to say it. It felt wrong.
So, all right. So now that you've had the chance to think it through and say it, go ahead and say it fully. Just go ahead and say it again.
I think that this could be the first team year coach that Orlando wins against Atlanta.
Back in 2010, and he's found his first goal for Atlanta in this competition.
Orlando.
Here are the.
Oh, I think that I think if it happens at Exploria. It doesn't happen in Atlanta. It's going to be a tough test for Atlanta United this year, but I still think Atlanta is the superior side with the roster that they have. But I think that if it does happen, it's going to happen in Exploria.
I mean, Hunch Zone on Twitch said it's 2020. Anything bad that can happen will happen.
True, Hutcho. No doubt about it.
No doubt about it. But in all honesty, Orlando is a team that needs to be taken seriously. I know that Brad has said this, that they've never taken Orlando for credit. They've always, obviously prepared well and good. But this is this point in time where they know Orlando has been playing on a sort of a hot streak. They had a great MLS is Back tournament. They just won against Nashville 3-1. That's going to boost anybody's confidence. So I would be really interested, and I'll be very interested to see how we line up against Orlando. That being said, let's go ahead and bring on Jason, because I feel like right now we need a little bit of Godfather in our life.
A little Godfathery?
Just a little bit of Godfather for us to really break down how we could see a matchup against us structurally without Escobar, right? Without Meza, without Barco, without Hyndman, how we can see us moving forward against this Orlando team that has done really well recently. Ladies and gentlemen, the Godfather of soccer, Jason.
I guess that works. I don't have a theme song.
We got to work on that. We got to work on a drop or something.
It's all good. It's all good. And not the Godfather of soccer. No.
Godfather of Atlanta soccer?
The Godfather of Atlanta soccer?
No. I just work at it and try to get better each time. That's all I can do.
Okay, you're too humble.
Just does the best that he can every single time.
So let's go ahead and start getting into this breakdown of how the game's going to go. Jason, obviously, I want to lead off with you. We are starting the match tomorrow, obviously without a Barco, without a Hyndman. They are day-to-day. We are starting without Joseph Martinez. Orlando. And we're starting it without a suspended Escobar.
Ana Fernanda Meza.
Ana Fernanda Meza, thank you very much. It's a lot of things on my mind.
Mm-hmm.
I know that Glass said that we're probably going to come into this match the same that we would have came into it against Miami, obviously with the same lineup. So if we're going to go after that, then obviously the lineup's going to be Goose, Bello on the left, Miles, Walks, Lennon on the right, Remedi, Husetu, Adams, and then we see up three of Pity on the left, Castro on the right, John up top. What are your thoughts as far as how this team can form and how we can sort of win and dominate a possession-based Orlando team?
I don't think you dominate Orlando anymore. This is a really strong Orlando team. Like, my question is twofold. After watching the Nashville game back, Orlando really struggled with direct vertical play early. Nashville didn't punish them enough for the chances they created. Orlando's back line, when put under that kind of pressure, struggled. Will Atlanta take some cues from that? You don't have the same types of forwards as Abu Danladi, especially Danladi, Rios to a lesser extent. Do you just maybe try to get vertical with Manuel Castro stepping up a little bit higher early on with Adam John if he gets the start? I know what Glassy said about potentially the same starting 11. Could he be playing a little bit of games? Because that's the easy answer, right? These guys didn't play. That's just going to be the lineup. Hyndman and Barco are closer to being ready. You get more time to rest. Cubo Torres is closer to being able to play longer than 15, 20 minutes. And he's the one that could be the game changer to me. I would expect him to be able to give at least 45 minutes tomorrow. Maybe more. And we'll just have to wait and see. He makes everything just flow better with this group. John is a better option off the bench late in games where you are getting vertical. He can't affect you the same way like Danladi did with pace. So, you can play to him vertically and play off of him. He's trying to flick it on to Pitti, flick it on to Castro. It's not really what worked as well against Orlando in that game. I want to see if Atlanta comes out and plays very vertical early. I also want to see if Orlando comes in a little bit tired because I don't think they have as many options off the bench. I don't think they can rotate as well as Oscar Pareja would like at this point. It's a big drop after their starting 11. And I think they settled on their starting 11 with maybe the question at center back about Antonio Carlos and Rodrigo Schlegel. I think Daryl Dike is their forward with Dom Dwyer out. Honestly, I think he's their forward with Dom Dwyer in. But he's the guy up top. He's just won the job. They don't have a ton of other options that they feel comfortable with. So playing Wednesday, Atlanta not playing Wednesday, is Orlando going to run out of gas late in the match? I still think they give up some big mistakes. I think Orlando defensively is not as stable as Pereira wants them to be. They're much better, and I think it could be a match where Orlando has more of the ball, more possession, but Atlanta creates the more dangerous chances.
I agree. I think what you're saying as far as getting vertical early, and obviously
it's not in Atlanta's game plan. Like, it's not how they play. But
right.
You saw what Nashville did with it. Now, Nashville's built to play that way. It's easier for them. Do you look at it as a consideration? And I think Castro could be an interesting one there if you can get him 1v1 with Joao Moutinho. Moutinho's having the best year of his career right now. He's been very good in 1v1s. He's been good defensively. I still think he can be had. I think Juan, when he goes forward, you can get in behind him. You want to be able to get players in behind. You can do the verticality in a little bit different way than Nashville did. I just wonder if it's something to try to throw Orlando off at times. I don't think it's the 90-minute game plan for Atlanta, but do you turn to it because you saw it open some doors for Nashville? Maybe more than you would have against somebody else.
Yeah. John, you want to add to that?
Yeah, I just there's a guy that's in my head, and it's probably more from the 60th minute on, because you mentioned the notion of Orlando being out of gas, bringing on somebody like a Jake Mulroney at this point to put the pedal down and just to have that raw speed and continue to weaken a tired Orlando side late in the second half.
Yeah, I like the idea. I really like the idea of Mulroney coming on late and running at players. He's good in those 1v1s as well, and Mulroney could be a really good option off the bench up high for this team. I'm curious to see if Mulroney and Gallagher become options like that in this game, because both can bring that energy. Both can make a team uncomfortable late when they're on tired legs. And it could be a situation where you move Pitti around a little bit. You bring on Mulroney, you bring on Gallagher, you bring on one or the other, maybe both. And they push the pressure a little bit more later on. Because the other thing about Orlando that we know by this point, if you've watched them this season, they're going to play out of the back. If you press them, they don't care. They're still going to play out of the back. They are determined to play in that manner. And even if you start having some success pressing them, they are still going to do that. Galese, their goalkeeper, does not go long very often. The center backs don't like to go long very often. They want to build up play out of the back. They want to play down the right side to Juan. And then if they do have to look for a big switch, they're going to try to find Nani in space. You can press them because they're going to allow you to. It just depends on if you can be successful at it.
Yeah. And we did talk about this, fresh legs coming against tired legs. And you guys mentioned, obviously, Mulroney, Gallagher. Also to be mentioned is Dom, with the speed that comes with that sort of substitution. So what we could see is
Dom's more of a wild card. It would be the only thing I would say. I mean, I think we have to remember about Jürgen Damm is he's played 45 minutes of soccer in 2020, period. Like, he was coming basically with no fitness to Atlanta. So you do have to be careful. Nico Cantor from Today NA posted this before everything started to go down on Wednesday in Fort Lauderdale. He posted that well before teams were out to warm up. This was, I think, before most media was in the building. Dom was out working out, which is usually a sign he's not going to play in that match. But it's a sign that he's getting closer if you're taking him on trips and you're getting him integrated into what that just game day is like and building those, just friendships off the field. I mean, that's part of it, building chemistry. So he's close. Does this extra day, this extra, lack of not playing on Wednesday, does that help him in any way? Maybe he's in that mix to be a 5-10 minute guy off the bench this time around. But it's going to be slow with him. It's going to take time. I don't think he's a big factor in this, if a factor at all.
So you would say then you don't see him playing more than 20 minutes in this match?
No, I don't. I think he is, in a perfect world, I mean, it's one of those, like, if you have a big lead and you've got the game under control, you want to give him 10, 15 minutes to give him a run out. But if it's a situation where, you're chasing the game, maybe he's your last roll of the dice, I don't know, your fifth sub. I mean, it's just, I don't think he's got a whole lot in him right now in terms of the gas tank. I think it's going to take him a little more time.
Okay. So then let's go ahead, John.
That
Sorry.
was just kind of like what we saw with Kubo Torres last time out, where he gets the cameo and does the
Dom's
last 10 minutes.
no, that was more not. I wouldn't call it a cameo. Like Dom's so much further behind Kubo in terms of fitness. So I mean, it's he's not even to where Kubo was last time about being able to give you a good 15 minutes in a 1-0 game, because that wasn't a cameo. That's still a tight game. If you've got a 2-goal lead, you'd love to give him more time, because then he can kind of ease into it. Putting him into a pressure situation right now, I don't know how much he's got to give you at this point.
Okay. So then if we're looking at the lineup for tomorrow based on everything that we just said with the pressing of Orlando, them wanting to play out of the back no matter what, are we, in your opinion, outside of what was said from Stephen Glass, are you looking at the same lineup? Or are you thinking that we're going to change it up a little bit, put a little bit more veteranness in the back line with Larry, with what we're looking at facing the front three of Orlando?
I don't like Larinowitz on the back line against DK if he's going to be the guy, and I think this extra game helps you answer that question. I think DK is obviously the guy, unless he's just worn out and can't go. DK, it's going to be Miles and Walks both kind of taking turns dealing with him. He is a man-child, and he will manhandle defenders. He's got speed, but it will be incredibly physical. And I think Jeff would have problems with him where Walks can maybe wrestle with him a little bit more. Robinson can run with him when he gets loose. You've got a pretty good pairing to deal with him. Orlando is difficult because DK's in really good form right now. Nani's Nani, and he can do nothing for 90 minutes and then the 91st pop up and beat you. Mueller, I think, is a little bit of a distraction at this point in terms of, you see 5 goals. You saw the goal, where he's on his belly and he hops up and has the header. He's not creating a ton of chances. He's not in position to score a bunch of goals. I mean, I'm not a big subscriber to XG, but he's like outperforming it by twice as much. He's not having the overall impact that I think his stat line looks like at times. You can deal with him a little bit. He's going to press you. He's going to run and chase you and make things difficult in that way. He always gives you that. But quality, you're going to take your chances with him more than you're going to take your chances with Nani. Pereira is the one who scares me the most for Orlando. Incredible number 10. He can really go under the radar with this team because Mueller's going to catch your attention with his work rate, Nani with his brilliance, DK with his strength and speed, and just goal-scoring form right now. You forget about Pereira a little bit. The midfield for Atlanta, the question I have is, it's Remedi, it's Adams, it's Rossetto. We saw it against Nashville play far more like 1 behind 2. In this game, do you maybe need to have 2 behind 1? Rossetto's a little more by himself, with Adams and Remedi sitting a little bit deeper to account for Pereira a bit more. I'm kind of leaning that way, and maybe it's giving Eric Remedi the green light to go when he feels that he can go, and Adams is going to stay. But I think he's going to have a lot of defensive responsibility because of what Pereira can do. Their movement off the ball is really, really good. You need extra bodies there.
Yeah, no, I agree. That's definitely what I thought we would be looking at when it came to that midfield 3 of Remedi, Rossetto, and Adams, having both Adams and Remedi sit further back, and then Rossetto have a little bit more free range in that role. Is there anything else that you're looking at specifically with this match with Orlando that we as fans should be aware of?
Huon is a frightening prospect on the left side. I thought Bello had maybe his most complete game against Nashville. He did the job defensively as well as getting forward and contributing there. He's going to be tested in a way that he hasn't yet. Huon can outrun him, first off. I mean, Bello has good pace. Huon has pace that it can beat almost anybody in the league. You've got to be careful. And when Orlando can get Huon and Mueller together on that right side, you can create those overloads. So we know Pitty's not going to be asked to come back as much. He's free. Bello's going to have to do the job defensively in a big way here, and he's going to have to get some help. And this is another one where you're asking your central midfield to slide over and help deal with that too. And that's why I think Remedi and Adams will stay home more than Heineman did in the Nashville game, for example. He had the freedom to step forward a little bit higher because they weren't testing you in that space as much. Orlando will. So my biggest concern, I mean, honestly, since the MLS's back tournament, has been defensive communication. There's been far too many breakdowns there. There were breakdowns against Nashville. They didn't punish you. Orlando's movement off the ball, the way they can flood the zones out wide at times, you have to be communicating better. And this will be a back line that hasn't played together yet in Bello and Walks and Robinson and Lennon. And you've got to have that communication with Adams, with Remedi. Brad Gazan has to speak up a lot with this group. And, you know, it's kind of good that there's nobody in the building for this because you will hear everything he says. If you're on the field, you're going to hear him. But he's got to organize. If he doesn't, somebody else has to in this group because players will pop up behind you. And if you're not getting that help vocally, you're going to struggle against Orlando.
Yeah, that's a good thing that you mentioned Brad is being vocal with his back line. He just recorded his 37th clean sheet, so that's obviously a large number. It ties up with the record league. Anything else, John, you want to ask of our maestro with the soccer knowledge?
Well, Joe Bost on Twitter basically, Jason, is giving you the hashtag Don Longshore now.
Oh, okay.
Don Longshore.
Oh, jeez.
So really, my question is a confidence question more than anything else having to do with the 18/the 23 with the numbers at the back. And seeing individuals like a Lawrence Weick or a George Campbell, not obviously starting, but a part of the discussion late in the match to help with the tired legs from a defensive perspective from Atlanta United, because Glassy has seen them from their time with Atlanta United too, and he knows he has a comfort level with them. What about them now as a part of the backline discussion late in matches to help out?
You don't want to do that unless you have to. Now, I mean, the good thing is Glassy does trust these guys, and he has, I think, a relationship and can motivate them and give them the instructions they need. You don't want to change your backline centrally unless you absolutely have to. If Weick was to come on as a right back, that's okay because he'll stay home. You're going to have to make him stay home a little bit, but Glassy might slap him around on the touchline before he goes in to say, don't go anywhere, stay home if you're closing a game out, because Weick will roam a little bit. Yeah. But you don't want to change up the middle of your defense. You never do, and you especially don't in a game like this where communication can come up and bite you because you want that consistency. You want Walks and Robinson to see this one out. Robinson getting more time before playing again helps him a ton because he was not 90 minutes fit in game one. I wondered if he would finish on Wednesday. Hopefully he can here, and you're in good shape. Could you see Lorenowitz come on late as a very deep-lying central midfielder? Absolutely. Yeah. Could you see Weick come into a role to give you energy out wide? Sure. Campbell is the one you don't want to turn to. Nothing about George Campbell, just you don't want to change up that center-back pairing.
Exactly. All right. Well, thank you so much, Jason, for joining us. We really, really appreciate it. If you want to ask him any of the soccer knowledge that he has stored in his very vast encyclopedia brain.
Longshore.
Sure. You can find him at The Long Shoe on all the social medias. He's out there. He's answering questions. He's producing the show. Mm-hmm. He needs a break, guys, so we're going to give that to him right now.
Repair the glass and go back behind it.
It's broken. You can't. I don't have a sound for repairing glass. That doesn't make any sense. What?
I'm trying to figure out how to get you. I'm trying to figure out a way to get you back inside.
Yeah, but Jason, before you go,
okay.
Where can people watch all of your pre-match stuff?
Okay, so tomorrow we've got a power hour in the morning here on SDH, 10 o'clock. Yep. It'll go till 11. We'll get into tactics, so if you guys got tactical questions, we'll dig into that, maybe even break out the whiteboard for that show. Ooh. Normal places you can watch and listen, the app, soccerdownhere.net, on Spreaker, and on Twitch, the Twitch pitch. Then tomorrow we start at 3 o'clock on 92.9 The Game on the radio.com app. I think SiriusXM FC picks us up at 3:30. Kickoff is 3:55, 3:56. On Big Fox, we'll have the full-time report on radio.com and 92.9 The Game for an hour after the final whistle. We'll also be on the AT&T Countdown to Kickoff on Atlanta United social media channels. I think that's going to go out about 2:30, 2:45. So be on the lookout for that one as well. It'll be a long day.
All right. And then also one last thing.
Yes.
What's your score prediction?
3-2 Atlanta. I think it will be sloppy because I think Orlando will be tired. I think Orlando can shake up this back line for Atlanta. I mean, there's a couple things like I don't know why I'm that's my gut feeling on this game. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense because Atlanta hasn't scored 3 goals in a while, and Atlanta hasn't conceded more than 1 goal in a league match all year. You know, the defense has had some questions, but they haven't given up a bunch of goals. So I just feel like the combination of Orlando's quality, Atlanta's, still figuring it out and explosiveness at times, Orlando being tired, the depth being an issue for them, I think it will all end up with a crazy, silly game that we're used to seeing with Atlanta and Orlando and 3-2.
Yeah, and hopefully another glorious goal like Tito Vial does.
Yeah, I'll take one of those from Hosetu from distance. That'll work.
There you go.
That'll work. All right. Thank you again, Jason, for joining us. We really, really appreciate it. We'll go ahead and let you go as we wrap up the show. John.
Whoa. You haven't given a prediction yet, have you?
Well, I'm about to get there. This is what I'm leading into. You got to let me lead you in, man.
All right.
John.
So lead me in.
Obviously, I pitched this question to Jason.
Uh-huh.
I have my own score prediction, which I'm actually going to leave for last now that you've set me up like this. So what is your score prediction for the game tomorrow?
See, now, once again, I wish that I had my driving slippers handy because all I would have to do is sit there and flash it on the screen. It is the velvet. It is what Doug Robertson of the AJC has coined the velvet driving slipper lock of the week. It is 2-1 Atlanta United because that was how I've won the Bailey Daily Cup. Jay Bailey 86 is how we do the Bailey Daily Cup for the predictions for all of us here on the shows on the network. So my stock prediction has always been 2-1 because I always think that something's going to happen one way or the other. I think that there's going to be some tired legs for Orlando. I think that having the quick turn, having to fly up the day of, which means that you're getting out of bed at the crack of dawn. You might have some breakfast at MCO. You might have it on the plane. You might have it in a bag handed to you as you hop onto your charter. It's going to be an early flight up here for a game a little before 4 o'clock in the afternoon. So tired legs, early flight. Atlanta United gets goals on the board, and then I think that I'm going to go ahead and say Pereira gets the one for Orlando, but I think it's 1 for Pitti, 1 for Castro, and 1 for Orlando. So 2 for the home team, 1 for the visitors, full points, full love for Atlanta United.
And is that with Torres starting, Kubo Torres starting?
I had John starting and then giving a good 45 and then Kubo coming in for the second 45.
Okay. All right. Interesting. I am actually going with the 2-2.
Okay.
I feel like Orlando is the strongest Orlando we've seen in a very long time. This is a Orlando that I definitely see making the playoffs, which, by the way, Atlanta is outside of the playoff line right now, so that's interesting to watch. Obviously, we played one last game, so there's that. But I do see Daryl DK being a huge, huge threat in this match. I see him, if he's not both goal scorers, I see it being possibly a Nani Daryl DK game for their 2 points. As far as our goal scorers, I actually think that Orlando gets 2 in the first half, and we score 1 in the first half, and then we equalize late in the match with a Kubo Torres goal. But I'm not entirely sure who scores our first goal, but somebody's going to do it. But I see the game ending in a 2-2, a 1 for everybody draw. So that's where I see the match ending. Get my opinion.
Yeah.
I still don't want the L. I don't think we get an L. I think if it's either a tie or a win. I'm not accepting anything else.
Your last 5 matchups. 1-0 Atlanta over Orlando, 1-0 Atlanta over Orlando, 2-1, 4-0, and 2-1 on May 13th of 2018. So that's your last 5 matchups for Atlanta United going up against Orlando City.
There you go. This will be a very interesting game to watch because, like I said, I think that this is the Orlando team that has frightened me the most of every iteration of this team I've ever seen.
Every iteration, this one has frightened you the most.
Correct. They rebooted multiple times. This is the only time that the player is actually, pretty good. So, where will you be watching the match tomorrow?
I will be at Mercedes-Benz Stadium in the socially distanced press box watching referee Nima Sagafi as our center ref. Your ARs are Eric Weisbrod and Cameron Blanchard. Guido Gonzalez is your fourth official, and Jorge Gonzalez with a Z is your VAR. But I will be at Mercedes-Benz in a socially distanced manner, wearing a mask and catching up with folks on the SDH Twitter account. So it will be good to have conversations back and forth. What have folks been saying on the Twitch pitch before we go?
I will not mention the comments that at Latin Heat just stated. Those are some comments there, Annie. But, bold call, Kelly, from Alex Passin. We have not been great coming from behind for a long time. Very true, but I feel like this is a different team than we have seen. I do feel like we have people that can come on and bring energy, and I do feel like we have that ability to come from behind.
There you go.
That's most of what I've seen. I'm just going to go ahead and wrap us up here. I actually will be watching, quote unquote, / listening on 92.9 The Game from the road, since I will be doing a 6-hour drive to Virginia tomorrow to start my vacation, ? So
Excellent.
Looking forward to that, but I still have yet to pack my bag for it. So that's what I get to do after this. Waiting till the last minute, as always.
Just pack for everything, prepare for everything, and then you know that you won't need half of it, but that's the best thing is just overpack so you're not underprepared.
Exactly. Well, thank you guys so much for joining us on Twitch. Thank you for joining us on Twitter. As always, we are the Run Up. We are here every night before a home or away match from 7 to 8. Just log in, find us here, join the conversation, and let's have a good time. Thank you again so much for joining, and we look forth. There goes my dog.
I was going to say, what happened?
But thank you again for so much for joining us, and we're gonna wrap it at that. Have a good day, everybody, and let's get that W.